I'll have my revenge, and Deathstalker too.
Hello and welcome to Staff Picks, the podcast for movie nerds by movie nerds. As always, I'm Mario Lanza, and I am your host on our journey out there through movies that I feel just deserve a little more love, a little more attention in the world. And our movie today it's especially close to my heart, near and dear to my heart, because this is a movie that I have been pimping out to people for about 20 years. I mean, really since about the start of when the internet came about and people would get on there, college students, this was me at the time, and people would be talking about movies and pop culture. And this is the one. This was always my one when people would say, what's a movie that you like that most people don't know about? And I'm like, there's this B movie, sword and sorcery movie from the late 80s called Deathstalker 2, Duel of the Titans. It is such a fun movie, and it's one of these that I just have got to talk to the world about, and I've been doing that for about 20 years, and I'm so excited because today on my podcast I have the actual director of the movie, the man who wrote it, the guy who's behind, the brainchild behind one of my favorite movies of all time, Jim Wynorski, and I'm so excited you're here. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Oh, thank you, Mario.
Now, before we get into this, I have so much I want to say about Deathstalker. I know there's a lot that you want to talk about because a lot of people don't know the story behind this movie, but you're a Hollywood director, or a director, I don't know if you do B movies, right? Would you consider yourself a Hollywood director or a B movie director?
Well, I live in Hollywood, so I guess I'm a Hollywood director, okay? And I've done 167 movies over the course of the years, and I guess that puts me in the running.
Excellent. Yeah, that is 167 more movies than I have directed. So you are by far the most.
No, I didn't direct 167. I think I've directed 100, but there's another 67 I've written and produced that I lump into that big category.
Okay. Well, either way, again, you've been doing this for 30, 40 years, and just off the top of my head, is Deathstalker the movie that you get the most attention for these days, or is what would be the movie people would know you from?
You know, some people claim it's Chopping Mall, some people claim it's The Return of Swamp Thing, and other people, you know, everybody likes a different movie. I get emails and not fan letters anymore because mail went out. Mail's passe, but I do get emails and from a lot of people saying, "Oh, I like this movie or that movie." So I'm glad they're out there, and I'm glad they're being enjoyed.
Yeah, and I know you're very prominent on Facebook, which is how I found you. In fact, it was only just a little bit ago I didn't even realize you had a Facebook page, so I had friended you, and you post on there very regularly. So, like, you're one of the most active people I know on Facebook.
Well, sometimes I get bored in the middle of the night and I post some shots.
Yeah. So, Deathstalker 2, this is, I have to tell you, Jim, just right off the top of my head here, right off the bat, you're breaking two firsts here today. You are the first person I've had on the show who actually directed the movie I'm talking about. Usually I just have a fan on, but with Deathstalker 2, I wanted to do a special thing.
Okay.
This is also the first sequel I have ever done on Staff Picks. I have done 50 shows, and I am very much, in general, anti-sequel. I just don't like the idea of sequels, you know, ripping off the idea of the original.
As a matter of course, I'll tell you that I didn't consider it a sequel. I don't consider it a sequel. It is not a sequel. There's nothing from the first Deathstalker that is brought over to the second one except a few stock footage of some pig guys. That's it. Because I didn't want to make a sequel to the original. I thought the original was, you know, okay, but certainly not something I wanted to emulate. And because I have a sense of humor, and I figured, okay, well, I'll use my sense of humor in making Deathstalker 2. I knew it was called Deathstalker 2 when I went down to make it, but I had no intention of following in the footsteps of the first one.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's set the story here for people who don't know this movie. I will give it just a real quick overview. Deathstalker 2, in essence, is a barbarian movie, like Conan the Barbarian, like the original Deathstalker, but it's really not. In that you and your crew turned it into like a screwball comedy, right? Would that be a safe way to describe it?
I would say yes, we did. I wouldn't say screwball comedy. I would say a romantic comedy.
Okay.
Because it's loaded with romance, and it's based on a very famous romantic comedy that won an Oscar, called It Happened One Night, directed by Frank Capra.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my inspiration for my version of Deathstalker.
Okay, so help me with the timeline here. So if I call it, you worked for Roger Corman, right? This is a Roger Corman production?
Yes, it was. It was the last of the Argentine productions. Deathstalker 1 was the first. And then they made a number of others, Barbarian Queen, Amazons, and there was another one in there that I kind of Warrior and Sorceress with David Carradine.
Okay.
And the last one on the production list was Deathstalker 2. So by that time, they'd run out of money. And I said, okay, we won't have the big Amazon fights and things that they had in the originals because I don't need them. Mm-hmm. I looked at the original. I was able to pull some stock footage from the first Deathstalker, and some stock footage from a picture called Amazons, which nobody remembers. And we put them all into Deathstalker 2. And then along with John Terlesky, who was the star, we used to sit in the hotel at night and write what we would do the next day, mm-hmm. or the day after. And then we'd go in the morning and give the new pages to the actors, who would be like dumbfounded by what they were getting, because they came thinking they were going to do the original script. But I made an announcement several times. I said, we are not making that script, which got me in a little trouble with the production company, because they said they called him Roger immediately, and they said, this kid's out of control. Okay. Mm-hmm. And Roger came down with his wife and kids to see what I'd shot already. And he was very, kindly to the project. Mm-hmm. Felt very kindly. He said, you're doing something different, but I can see that you're doing it well, and continue on. So he left, and then that's when we came up with the idea of doing a kind of a Rocky ripoff. And I called Roger. I said, send down the toughest Amazon woman wrestler that you can find. And he did. And that's to his credit, because, we weren't making the Deathstalker 2, a script that had been written by a guy named Neil Ruttenberg. Mm-hmm. And he still gets credit, but John and I did the whole thing ourselves. And I'm very proud of that picture because it's so fun, and so many people have warmed up to it over the years.
Yeah, it's when I discovered Deathstalker 2, I'm trying to paint a picture for people who have never seen this movie before, because again, my audience tends to be much younger than me. I'm in my 40s, so I'm selling this to people in their teens and 20s.
Punks, just punks.
They're punks, yes.
They're punks.
They're well-meaning punks.
What do they know? What do they know?
They want to be educated, Jim. They want to learn.
All right, kids, go to Amazon, rent Deathstalker 2. Or watch it on DVD. I think there's a Blu-ray, but it's out of print already.
Yeah, it's. I have the DVD, which I know it has the director's commentary on it, which I know you kind of disavow that version because there's scenes in there that the studio put in there that you didn't want afterwards.
Oh, I hated that version.
Yeah,
I hated that version because they did that to extend the length of the movie. Now here's the timeline. Vestron in the 80s. Put out my version.
Mm-hmm. That's the VHS, right?
That's the VHS and the Laserdisc.
Okay.
That was my version. Kids, there was these big silver discs when, before you were born, that they put movies on. They were called laser discs. They're gone now. But then Roger put a DVD out, and it was the longer version. And I was happy that it was out because it had some footage I wanted to see preserved.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a commentary. And then thankfully, Shout Factory put out the original on DVD, and then put out a Blu-ray of the original, which I was very happy to get a hold of. That's the timeline on all the versions.
Okay, now see, I love that commentary. That's one of my all-time favorite movie commentaries, and it's a shame that it's on the version that you don't like.
Well, that's the way it goes. It's the way it goes. I think Tony Naples and I were half gassed when we were doing that, and John was there too. And we were drinking beers and having a good old time.
Yeah, I wish I could describe that commentary to people. Again, just think of, okay, I'm going to do a big overview of this picture just for people who don't know it. We're talking about Roger Corman Productions. People who know Mystery Science Theater would know Roger Corman. They riffed a bunch of his movies, and they're always taking digs at how cheap his movies are, but at the same time, I think this is right, Jim, that Roger Corman has claimed he's never made a movie that wasn't profitable, right?
He's made a couple. I'll keep the legend going.
Okay. So Roger Corman missed out. He wanted to make Conan the Barbarian. I think he didn't make it, and he was upset because it was a big hit. So he made this ripoff of Conan called Deathstalker. Have you seen the original Deathstalker? Are you even familiar with it?
Yes, of course.
Okay. And then, again, they wrote a sequel, and they send Jim and just a bunch of your buddies down to Argentina to make this Deathstalker 2 in 1987. And like you said, you took a look at the script, and you said, this is crap. Let's just make up our own movie. And like you said, you turned it into a Frank Capra romantic comedy disguised as a barbarian movie.
With action.
With action.
And it was 1986.
That's right.
Not 87.
Okay. It came out in 87, or at least that's the copyright date now.
Right.
Okay,
it came out in 87. It was in every video store you walked into.
This never got a theatrical release, right? It went straight to video?
Straight to video.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, when I discovered it, it was on USA Up All Night, and it's hard to describe that show to people who are younger now, but USA Up All Night was, if your parents didn't let you watch R-rated movies, it's where you could catch the TV versions of them late at night on USA, and maybe you'd see something approximating a boob at one point.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Rhonda Shear
and Gilbert.
Gilbert Godfrey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I discovered this movie late one night. I was just watching TV, and I had seen a couple sword and sorcery movies, and just one night I stumbled onto this one, and it was the wrestling scene that you talked about where Deathstalker fights Queen Kong from Glow.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was just enamored by the spirit of this movie because the one thing I'm trying to describe this to people who've maybe never seen this movie, it's just irreverent, and what is the word? You used a word earlier where it doesn't really fit in the time period that it's set in.
It's all anachronistic, which means we didn't give a damn about, this is not the prehistoric Conan times. It is, but, the restaurants have open 24-hour signs, and people are doing things that they wouldn't normally do in that kind of time period. But I didn't care. I thought, okay, it's funny. Stay with fun. Stay with fun.
Yeah, and it really is funny. I remember laughing the entire way through the movie, and you're not laughing because it's not well done. You're laughing because it's clearly, like I said, I didn't know you. I'm like, whoever made this movie wasn't really interested in making a straight barbarian movie. It's so like off-center and fun, and just you can tell the actors are having a good time. That's the one thing I always think of when I watch Deathstalker 2. Like John Terlesky, Tony Naples, Monique Gabrielle, they're having a ball.
That's right. We had a good group, and we hung out at all at the same hotel, which was like the overlook from The Shining. Okay, there was nobody there. It was this big giant hotel that only had people on weekends, but during the week it was just us, and it was such a crazy hotel, and you could scream down the halls and nobody would hear you. So so we hung out there on the top floor, and John and I would sit in the TV room in the lounge and just write these new scenes. And we were hysterical. We were just. I said, "What if we did this? What if we did this?" And we continually had to rewrite scenes because the original script was so awful. It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was awful. It was just mundane.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't want to do this. And so that's why we went with the "it happened one night" scenario. And I doubled Monique's acting ability because she got to play two different parts. So there's a little double twins action going on, and I had a good time.
Yeah, let's talk about Monique Gabrielle for a second here, because I have mentioned her before on Staff Picks that she's a dark horse favorite on one of my favorite B-movie actresses, just because I've already done another movie featuring her on Staff Picks. We did Bachelor Party, where she shows up with Tom Hanks.
Right.
And then this is the second Monique Gabrielle movie, which is really her magnum opus, because like you said, she plays two roles. And in the future, I'm doing Amazon Women on the Moon, where she literally just walks naked through the entire movie.
It's odd, but I was having a good time down there, and she was a little bit put off by the location, because there was nothing to do at night. There was a restaurant across the street that, and it was all meat. Anything in a restaurant down there is meat and lettuce. That's it. And so, but she got into the spirit of things, and I loved what she was doing. I kind of had to force her to do different things. She said, "I can't do that." I said, "Yes, you can. You can be funny." And she says, "This isn't working." I said, "Yes, it is. It's working." And so I got, basically two different performances. People have watched that movie and said, the princess was great, but the evil princess was this. And I said, it's the same person.
Yeah, Monique is great in that movie, and I will be the first person to admit, when I saw this movie, again, I was like 13 years old. I was so in love with her, especially as the waif, as the good Princess Evie. Like, I remember just watching this movie and thinking, like, I'm watching her and like, she doesn't seem like maybe she's the best natural actress in the world. Some of it's a little over the top. Like, she acts a lot with her eyebrows and she rolls her eyes a lot, but she had such natural charm that she was easily one of the first actresses as a kid. I just absolutely fell in love with how charming she was. And I just always thought that even when I watched the movie today, like, you just sense that she was this really fun, sweet person at that age. And I like, was she really like that in real life? Just very sweet like that?
Yes. Her real name was Catherine Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
And we had as I watched I was watching that film every day while I was editing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I watched it, the more I, like you, fell in love with her. And, we started going out. We were together for about 5 years.
Man.
From 85 to 91 or 92.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, we got a house together. It's really weird, but that's what happened. And, she was very sweet. But then she had a kind of a big thing with some of her family issues, and we split apart. But it was an interesting 5 years or 6 years.
Yeah, and again, just such a treat watching her now in this movie. Just watching, her. I will say though, I think she sets the Guinness Book of World Records for the most time screaming the word "stalker" in one movie.
Stalker? Stalker! Stalker! Stalker?
That's true. But something, again, when we were making this film, we were having such a good old time. Finally, she got into the part,
mm-hmm.
and it was fun. It was just a fun time. And I can't tell you how much of a good time we had down there, because John and I and Tony and Monique would go out every weekend to Buenos Aires and just, stay up till all hours and have a good old time. And, while I was down there, Roger called me and said, is she good enough to play Emmanuel? And I said, yes, he is good enough to play Emmanuel. She just needs a good director. And so she left directly from Argentina and flew to Europe to do Emmanuel 5. I remember going to the airport down in Orange County to pick her up when she landed. And I said, how was it? And she says, I hated every minute of it.
It wasn't Deathstalker 2.
She said the director didn't know what he was doing. And I said, okay, well. And, Deathstalker 2 hadn't come out yet. And I remember the day or the week it came out, Daily Variety wrote a very glowing review of it and singled her out for her performance, saying what a delight it was. And she read that, and suddenly, she had stars in her eyes. And she deserved the good glowing review because she'd done such a great job. And there's an editor named Steve Barnett who went on to direct other movies, and he cut the movie and did a spectacular job of cutting all around any problem she had. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, that's some of the Deathstalker 2 stories.
Yeah, she really is the heart of the movie, and she's like, I was, just like you said in that story, I was shocked when I got to the end the first time and I realized that was the same actress playing the evil seer and then the good seer. Like, I didn't even realize that was the same person. That's the thing. It's weird saying, well, she did it, like, pulled off this amazing, great performance, because you can tell, again, she wasn't really a natural actress, but like, her personality is so incredibly different, and just her body language that, again, I am not surprised that you fell in love with her too, since I did.
Well, I think a lot of people did. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people did, because I know my editor asked her out. And it was like, she was great. She was great. I think I put her in everything after that. She was supposed to be one of the girls in Big Bad Mama 2, but she had some other commitment at the time. Then I put her in Now of This Earth. I put her in Return of Swamp Thing. I put her in Transylvania Twist. I put her in Munchie. She's that's right around 92 when we broke up. But she was a sweetheart. She kind of disappeared, so that's why she's not on the commentary.
Yeah, that's too bad. I really would like to hear her impression or her thoughts on this movie, especially 30 years later. I'd be very curious to hear from her.
Well, she got involved with some guy that brought her into all sorts of bad things, mm-hmm. And it ended up where she had to leave town, and I think she lives in Florida now, somewhere. But I haven't spoken to her since 91, when we had our little goodbye, and that was it. So, but I wish her well, yeah. And I thank her for all her good performances.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it was just a shame as, 14-year-old me falling in love with her, realizing, I think maybe someday I'll meet her and ask her out, and even realizing I'm already third in line behind you and the editor. So already I had no chance. So.
Oh, well, there was a lot of other competition going on back then too. She had guys, actors and everything else going out with her. So it was interesting.
Yeah, just after Bachelor Party alone, I imagine she would have been very popular.
I remember I hadn't met her. I hadn't seen Bachelor Party. So I went to see it, and I said, wow, this girl's hot. Okay. So that's why I hired her for the role.
for people who might not know Deathstalker or Monique Gabrielle, who we're talking about, she was, if you know Bachelor Party, she's the dream girl, Tracy, who appears to Tom Hanks and tries to tempt him away from Debbie. It's a very, very, very famous scene, and that was really her introduction, I think, to movies. And she, again, had a pretty good thing going in the 80s.
She did a lot of movies in the 80s.
She had a great thing going. Although, okay, getting back to Deathstalker 2, there's a couple things I want to point out to people just to sell this movie to them if they've never seen it before. And again, I said it's a barbarian movie that's very anachronistic, very irreverent. There's jokes and stuff. There's a couple things I wrote down here, Jim. I'd like to hear your comments on these.
All right, go ahead.
The number of spit takes in this movie is legendary.
Yeah. That was all based on Danny Thomas. John and I were both, had seen these Danny Thomas shows, and Danny Thomas was famous for spit takes. Mm-hmm. And I said, all right, Deathstalker is going to, whenever he gets hit up for something he doesn't expect, he does a spit take. So, when the Amazon woman, the princess, wants to marry, says she's going to marry him, he there's a spit take and he takes off, and so we were trying to do funny, and any time that we had a chance to do funny, we did it.
Yeah, and that follow that up, you have puns in here in this movie. There's puns all over the place. There's like old timey jokes, and there's one that in particular that I love is that the why I oughta. When Deathstalker's mad at Evie, he keeps bringing back the why I oughta. Like, that's right out of like an old gangster comedy.
Yeah. I mean, yipe. He's doing Bugs Bunny. Okay? I mean, there's so many references. I mean, I could go through the film and do reference after reference. I mean, he quotes an Abbott and Costello. There's an Abbott and Costello gag. I believe that when they say, looks like he died with a gag in his mouth, and Stalker says, well, if he did, he never had a chance to tell it. And, I mean, there's throwaway lines like that throughout the whole picture. And we were hysterical. John and I were like, Monique didn't get it, but John and I were hysterical. We were saying this picture is going to be just so fun to watch at the end.
Okay, let me point out the laugh-in gag for people who...
Oh, very interesting. I had to do that.
If people don't realize how far this movie goes in the direction of not being a barbarian movie and making you laugh, they literally steal the most famous bit from Laugh-In, where Deathstalker and Evie are peering through the plants, and one of them says, or Deathstalker says, very interesting.
Had to do it.
Yeah. And then let's point out the James Bond line that you stole.
Oh, that's the one where during the Pit and the Pendulum scene.
Yeah, there's a pit and a pendulum where Deathstalker's about to get sawed in half. And what does the villainess say to him?
I believe she says, no, I expect you to die. He says, do you expect me to talk? And she says, no, I expect you to die. I had to do it. Because I was a big Goldfinger fan.
Where's the little princess?
You don't expect me to talk.
No. I expect you to die.
As a kid, I don't realize these are all movie references. It's only when I get older and I hear your commentary on the DVD, you and Terlesky are pointing these out left and right, and I'm just dying at how many references to other movies are in this movie.
Oh, yeah, we were going to town. And I had a great time. That's why, and I don't think even Roger Corman got them all. There's one at the very beginning where she says, I'll have my revenge in Deathstalker 2.
Yeah.
Which leads you into the title. And I said, we got to do that. And Roger hated it. Okay? He hated it. He said, but he couldn't cut around it because it was just, without it, it didn't work at all. So when she turns around and says, I'll have my revenge in Deathstalker 2, there was a flame bar underneath the camera, and the flames would come up and obscure her. So, So if you cut that line out, it was impossible to get around where that was going. So it ended up in the movie. I'm glad it did.
Yeah, okay. I have to just reiterate what happens in that scene for people who don't know it before, because this is my all-time favorite opening to a movie just because of the sheer balls it took to do this line. So the main villainess is looking at the camera, and she's mad that Deathstalker has just stolen her jewels. This is literally 30 seconds into the movie or something like this, and she's mad that he took her valuable gem, and she looks at the camera and says, "I'll have my revenge and Deathstalker 2." And then the title card literally pops up Deathstalker 2.
I'll have my revenge and Deathstalker 2.
Again, we weren't taking ourselves very seriously.
Yeah, I've seen people on YouTube, because that clip is on YouTube, and I'll see people point on there or like comment on there, "Oh, that's the worst opening ever." I'm like, do you people just not get movies? Like, you don't think he was in on the joke when they did that opening?
If they don't understand that, then fuck them.
No, I mean, that's really, I totally agree with you. That's such an amazing opening to a movie, and just having the balls to go for that joke. And I think you told me this was only like what, your third movie you'd done at the time?
It's my third director's job. Yeah.
So yes, sir, that took stones. Good job on that one.
You know, I figured I'm in a foreign country. It's a sequel, and the script was awful. I mean, it truly was. I don't think I have it anymore. But we whatever they had on the lot,
mm-hmm.
we would write a script there. You know, we had a scene that boxing ring was on the lot. And I said, "Oh, John, we got to write a Rocky riff here." So we did, and I think Roger finally got it when I called and asked for Queen Kong to come down. Yeah. He finally got it. He threw on a plane and sent her down, and it was worth it to me when I saw her.
Oh, I was gonna say, the scene Jim is talking about is like the Amazons. At one point, Deathstalker gets captured by Amazons, and they literally just have a boxing ring out in the middle of the forest. Which I love that scene. Again, that's the scene that I first stumbled onto this movie, where Deathstalker has to fight the Amazon champion. And for people who grew up in the '80s and watched the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, that's Queen Kong in there, in arguably her greatest movie role, where she comes out and fights Deathstalker in the middle of the forest.
Yes, that was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Okay, so here's something else, Jim, that I've always loved about this movie. And when I first saw it, again, I was just enamored by this movie, because you don't see many movies that were like this of that era, is that there's several points in the movie where John Terlesky or Monique Gabrielle have to say a line that's really very stupid and corny, and they know it.
Yeah. And
they say the line, and they laugh. And it's obvious they're laughing at how dumb this line is, and you actually kept it in the movie, and I thought that was so charming. There's certain scenes I can think of in particular where
Can you give me an example? I know the film pretty well.
Okay, so Deathstalker and Evie are hung out by a tree. They're hiding from these bad guys in the night by a tree, and Deathstalker says, "They're never going to catch me. You have to get up pretty early in the morning to catch the Prince of Thieves."
Oh, it is pretty early in the morning.
Yeah, an arrow shoots into the tree, and Evie says, "It is early in the morning," and then she starts giggling, and they ride off stage left.
Do you think we lost him?
You got to get up pretty early in the morning to catch the Prince of Thieves.
It is pretty early in the morning.
Again, the script was full of fun, and I just had a blast, because here it was, and you could. They had very good chemistry, so you saw that the romance was blossoming with them, even though they, Deathstalker, kind of was standoffish. You knew he was taken with her, and so, that's how it all worked out. I mean, some of the other things we had put in. I mean, you must have seen that awful massage scene. I didn't like that. That didn't turn out very well.
Yeah, that's only in the DVD version that I have. I don't think that's in the normal VHS one that I used to have.
No, that was taken out because I didn't like it. And there was a thing that never made it anywhere, where we showed the kingdom's coffers. Okay, and we cut to a room, this dungeon room, with a lot of Spanish guys coughing. And I don't know why it didn't end up in the movie, but it didn't. I remember why. Now I remember because it ruined the pace of when at the very end of the movie they're about to kiss and say I do. Mm-hmm. I thought it ruined the pace of that, so I left it out.
Yeah.
But there's so many wacky things we tried to do in that movie that.
Here's one I wanted to ask you about. Evie and Deathstalker are laying on the ground and they're about to kiss, and Deathstalker pulls back at a certain point, and he's like, and she's like, "Why don't you kiss me?" And he's like, "Well, I just think there's a time and a place for everything." And Monique says, "Well, the top half of you may think it's the wrong time, but the bottom half of you definitely knows it's the right place." And there's a beat, and then they just start busting up. They just laugh, and that's one of those things. I know they're busting up at the joke. I think that's almost like a ruined take, and you kept it in the movie.
I left it in because I thought it showed personality. Mm-hmm. It showed that that these two people really liked each other, and this wasn't a serious movie.
No,
it was a sequel to a movie that I didn't give a rat's ass about, and I wanted to make my own kind of movie.
Yeah,
and as it turned out, I believe it has eclipsed the original, and that more people like Deathstalker 2 than Deathstalker 1. And so I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, and just before we wrap up here, I only have a couple more things I wanted to ask you about. I just want to get people to understand the limitations under which you would work under in a movie like this. Because, people see this movie and they think, well, it's kind of cheap. You can see the castle set isn't very well done. And, at one point, they reuse, I think the castle scene at the end is actually the bar at the beginning, but they tried to hide it to make it look like it was two different sets. Is that true?
The bar was its own bar.
Okay.
And the castle was its own castle. I mean, the interior where the big sword fight is, that was not the bar.
Okay. It looks the same.
Oh, it may look the same, but here's the thing. All those sets existed when I got there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? All of it existed because it had been made for other movies.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing, I'm just trying to think if there was anything that was done the one thing that was expressly made for the movie was the mausoleum.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, all those sets were at the studio. I had whatever I had to work with, I worked with. And because some of it was cheap looking, I think, okay, if this is a comedy, people can overlook that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And they seem to, do it. On the version you have, there's a scene where you can see a car in the Amazon.
Yeah.
And I think I pointed out it in the commentary.
You do. It's great. I was just going to ask about that. Yeah, there's literally a scene in this movie where there's a car parked in the road in the background behind the Amazon forest camp.
It was. There's a tire as well.
Yeah, there's a tire in
the tire's left in, but the car on the Blu-ray they cut off the top and bottom as it was supposed to look, and you can't see the car on the Blu-ray.
Oh.
But on that DVD version, which is full frame, you can see that car so well.
Okay, and the other thing that you mentioned on the commentary that just why I love this movie so much and why I love your commentary is that you point out in the movie, every single time in the movie Deathstalker is attacked, it's by 3 villains. But they're always in different costumes. And you pointed out in the commentary, you only had 3 stuntmen as the villains in the movie, so you just redressed them in new outfits every scene?
Well, we tried to make them look different. And we put masks on them or whatever it was. I love those guys, but I didn't have a lot of money. The most stuntmen I had was during the bar fights.
Oh yeah. That's something, once you know that and you watch this movie, you can't unsee it. It's always Deathstalker's always being chased by 3 people, and you just realize it's always the same 3 actors in different masks.
Exactly. Anyway, it's the best I could do with what I had at the time. So, and I'm glad you like it.
I do, and I'm sorry, just before you go, there's one more thing I wanted to bring up, just because it's really close to my heart as running this podcast, is the music from Deathstalker 2.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you realize, I use the Deathstalker theme as the end titles for this music when at the very end when we're fading out. I always use Deathstalker's riding theme. And at one point I had asked you a couple months ago if I could use the main Deathstalker theme as the opening to this podcast. I ended up not doing it, but it's got one of the greatest movie soundtracks I can think of, and it just adds to the legend of this movie because the music is like one of the greatest soundtracks ever. It's amazing.
Well, that was done by, most of it was done by my good pal, Chuck Serino.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote that score before he never saw the movie.
Wow.
He never saw the movie. I called him from Argentina, and I said, I need a score. And I said, I need, send me 12 versions of the main theme.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I need this version, I need this version, this kind of version. And he did. He sent it all to me. And what I couldn't use in the movie, I used from the original soundtrack from their first Deathstalker,
mm-hmm.
which was, pretty good composer did first Deathstalker. But, there was a serious, kind of showdown theme I used during the final sword fight and, different things. But Chuck's music is really great, and I'm glad it finally got an album.
Yeah, it's great. I just recently bought the album, and I cut the tracks off there and use them on the soundtrack, and I'm so excited because I've been wanting to use the main Deathstalker theme in an episode of Staff Picks, and I haven't done it yet. But this episode, right before my intro, I played the full Deathstalker theme, so I'm hoping people will get to appreciate that because, again, it's just fantastic. It's one of my all-time favorite movie themes, and it's just, again, this movie's so fun, so many crazy things going on. Again, you guys just made something out of nothing. Again, you had no budget, no actors, a terrible script, and you went down to Argentina and threw it all together and threw in as many jokes and references as you could, to the point that it's almost like you have a Barbarian movie starring Michael Keaton or Bill Murray almost. That's kind of the feel it has.
Well, I thank you. I'm glad you enjoy it. I like making it, and I have fond memories of being down there shooting it, and I'm glad a lot of people have come to like it over the years.
Yeah, it's just, so again, one of these movies I've been pimping out for 20 years to people. And just before we go, I have to say one of the greatest bits of trivia about this movie, and I'm sure you'll back me up on this one. The lead villainess in this movie, her name is Toni Naples. At one point in the script, you didn't know what to do with her, so she literally just walks off the movie, correct? She just leaves. That's
right. I said, I don't want to kill her. I don't want to kill her just in case there's a sequel to mine, and I do it.
Mm-hmm.
I've got somebody I can call and say, "Get down here." and so when the battle gets tough, she just takes off. She says, "I'm leaving," and I didn't want to kill her off. I liked her too much, and I said, "Just tell him you're leaving."
Yeah, that's something I didn't catch until I heard the DVD commentary and you pointed it out.
Where a villain just says, "I'm out of here." Okay?
Yeah.
And that's what she does. She takes off. And I'm laughing now just thinking about how I told her, just say, "I'm leaving," like a chick would do. I'm leaving.
Where are you going?
Leaving.
You owe me your life.
I owe nothing to any man, even you. Good luck, because you're going to need it. Get out of my way.
Yeah, like I was saying, I never even noticed that in the movie till you pointed out in the commentary. She just leaves the movie. And this is like, we have this great ending of the movie and it all comes together. And then, like a cherry on top of the sundae, you have bloopers at the end of the movie, like the old Cannonball Run movies.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fantastic.
I had to put the bloopers in. The bloopers were hilarious, so I had to put them in. So it makes me want to go watch this movie again. So anyway, Mario, I'm getting out of here, and I thank you for the nice words and the kindness you've shown me, And I hope one of your or two of your listeners actually goes out and watches it. Okay?
Absolutely. And again, if I can make you want to watch the movie, and you made the damn movie, I'm so excited that maybe I can talk some people into watching this. So again, thank you, Jim, for showing up. My name is Mario Lanza. This is Staff Picks. If you need to reach me, you can reach me at staffpickspodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter @MarioJLanza. And again, until I talk to you again, I will be out there searching for more underrated movies that just need a little more love. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Come on, let's go find that horse and get the hell out of here. Oh, and would you mind taking that knife out of that guy for me? It's the only one I got left.